You talked about the necessity of holding healthy boundaries while working with cancer patients.
The defense that would come up for me would be me needing to abandon myself and caretake this other person so that they wouldn't have to experience the emotional pain that they're experiencing. And that intensity of energy being pushed into me would activate my own the desire to like save them.
What is love to you?
That's a crazy question. I really struggled with that. I had this mystical experience where like all kinds of energy channels opened up inside me. Like the most intense love I've ever experienced, and way beyond anything I had ever experienced or thought was possible to experience. And it made me like really question, like, okay, maybe God is real.
Welcome, Peter. Thank you so much for joining me today. So, you and I met at the Barbara Brennan School of Healing. If you want to tell us a little bit about what brought you there, maybe what experiences you had, what your journey has been like.
I was a super anxious kid. Anytime there were group activities, like my mom would bring me to like music classes as a kid, and just a bunch of moms and their kids in a group. And I would like want to like bury myself in my mom because I felt like this super intense like fear and anxiety just like coursing through me the whole time, and it was so terrifying to interact with kids. Um, and I was like afraid to sleep by myself, and just all these anxieties that I wasn't really aware of until like looking back now. It was just a normal experience for me, and probably like the first experience like paranormal that I can remember. I was about 5 years old, and I always used to sleep on the floor beside my mom, but one night I decided to sleep beside my dad. And I couldn't fall asleep. And then I remember this ghost coming towards me, and I was freaking out. I was trying to wake my dad up. He was still sleeping. And just like walking through the ghost, I remember those like feelings. And then years later, I remember seeing pictures of my grandfather. And the ghost or like the spirit or whatever, I guess, was trying to communicate with me was my grandfather. I don't really know what he was trying to communicate, but I just remember that was like that kind of opened my mind up, I guess, to uh, experiences beyond just like normal, just everyday matter,
Wow.
physical matter. So I don't really remember any energetic experiences before that, but I do remember in high school, I decided to take a yoga class as an elective, not because I was interested in yoga, but because I knew there was going to be a lot of girls in the class.
Of course.
Um,
Just take yoga in high school.
yeah, I think there was like one other guy in the class, and we were doing, I don't even know what we were doing, but the teacher was guiding us through something, and then I ended up having, like, I got so relaxed. I remember having like an out of body experience and like looking around the classroom and the rest of my high school until she like woke us up and I like snapped back into my body. And I feel like everybody's so exhausted in high school. Like you're just so stressed about all the different things going on. And it felt like I had slept for like months just because of how rested I felt for that day and like days afterwards.
Mm. I love that you started out with this because I think of you as like super high sense perception, Peter. Like, you've talked many times about your high sense perception and just the different sensory experiences you've had. And I'm just curious, what's one of the biggest personal discoveries that you've made, on your journey, your healing path? Maybe using high sense perception, or maybe you can define what high sense perception is in your understanding.
High sense perception, I guess. My own experience would be just being able to become more aware of subtlety over time. Like in BBSH, we learn to feel and perceive the different levels of the energy field.
Mhm.
And when you first start out, you're like, this is insane. Like, I can't feel anything. Am I making this up? But then over time, you start to have more and more experiences and you feel the same thing, then it becomes stronger and you can feel the difference between the first level, second level, third level, so on. And in a energy healing session context, uh, there's so many other things that can come into play. Like, I'll just speak for myself. Sometimes if I remove like an astral object from somebody's field, many times I get like a vision in my mind of what this person experienced when the time capsule was created, and you can feel all of the emotions, like the intensity of the emotions are like flowing out from this person, and I'm able to sense it in my own human energy field or however exactly I perceive this other person's field. And then I see a visual of some person experiencing usually something really terrifying and horrible that would elicit some kind of emotional and mental experience that would trap the energy. And
A-
um,
And then do you verify that, so you've used a couple of terms that not everybody might understand, like astral object and time capsule, but to put it in simple terms, you're basically picking up on somebody's past history, could be present life, could be past life. Is that correct?
yeah, some point in time, whether this life or possibly another life, if you believe in that stuff, the person formed some kind of mental belief when they experienced something really intense, usually traumatizing, and then there was a whole bunch of whole bunch of emotions bound up with that mental belief, and it freezes in their energy field, and it feels like no energy can really move because all the energy in it that wants to move freely is like stuck and bound in time in that one place. And that would be like an astral object, um, or a time capsule.
Hmm. Yeah, that's a really nice description. And so in energy healing, you're actually, so in terms of high sense perception, are you seeing this in the person's field? Are you experiencing it emotionally, or smelling it, or, or all of those?
Um, I have experienced like smell, touch, feeling, and hearing. I haven't really experienced taste before.
Mhm.
But for me, I mostly feel and see a lot of the times, and occasionally hear and smell. But I don't have a strong connection with that stuff.
Mhm.
Um, Other times I can feel when there's blocked energy somewhere or energy feels like normally energy like expands and contracts kind of naturally. And sometimes when something's stuck, it feels like it can't really expand, it can't really contract, and it's just really dense. Or it'll swirl in a way that doesn't really feel healthy. Uh,
And are you seeing sort of specific events that may have occurred in a person's life, or is it more of a sensation?
I'm perceiving more of like a sensation of the energy that's flowing or not flowing so flowy like.
Okay, got it. Flow be like, love that. And what about for yourself? You mentioned to me that you had an experiential around birthing trauma. Is that something you're willing to share?
Yeah, I forget what the medical terminology is for it, but it's where like the placenta detaches from the uterus before birth, and then the pregnant woman can lose a bunch of blood. It's usually not fatal because medical intervention can prevent it from being fatal, but so my mom had this experience where her placenta detached from her uterus around 6 or 7 months of being pregnant with me. I think I ended up being born at like 8 months. But, anyways, during that time period, she was rushed to the hospital, had to be taken care of. They had to make sure I didn't die in the uterus or whatever is going on. And I believe that kind of experience for me as a not a uterus as a I can know as a fetus, the emotions of probably experiencing like my body almost dying, also probably all of the emotions that my mother was experiencing was like trapped inside my energy field, and that was like an overwhelming experience that I feel like I had for like 25, 26 years of my life. Um, Especially with like it was always when there's people around, but it was super hyperactive that I would feel this like impending death and this like energy that would like freeze my whole being would come up when I'd interact with women. Probably because of the correlation of like my mom and death and all that stuff. When I first started doing stuff with Barbara Brennan, they do like the schizoid week, and the teacher was taking us through the birthing process. And I remember experiencing like being in my mom's uterus and like kind of coming out of her vagina. And then I like like just blacked out and like 15, 20 minutes woke up. Um, didn't really remember what was going on. And the teacher was like comforting everybody and all this kind of stuff. And I'm like, what was going on? And I was really pissed off because I was like, I know this is like a big issue. Like reading through all the material, I was like, this is something that is super present in my life and I want to work through it, but I wasn't ready at that time. To really let go of those things. And I think receiving the chelations, it's super simple, but just receiving soft energy and a gentle presence and just energy in general kind of allowed me to be able to tolerate experiencing more energy and expansion.
Mm.
Whereas previously, like even just experiencing my own life force felt like so intense that I'd have to shut down after experiencing that, or I'd have to shut it off because it was way too overwhelming to be able to tolerate all that energy running through me.
Wow, that sounds like a beautiful healing experience. And can I ask, did you know your birth story going into that experiential meditation at BBSH?
No, I did not know of it. I learned about it like 3 years later, just randomly. My mom was like, yeah, "This is the day that you almost died." Da, da, da. And I was like, "Wow, thanks for sharing that." Like 24 years.
Wow. Wow.
Um, there were so many different healings, receiving them in school, like during the school weeks and in the BIP sessions, um, that kind of took away layers of the wounding behind the schizoid wounding.
Hmm.
Um,
And just to clarify, the schizoid wounding is when a person is, in a general way, not very grounded and tends to live mostly in their heads, right? Or with a sort of more of a view to the divine as opposed to being connected to earth.
Would you mind if I like explained that from my perspective?
I'd love for you to, yeah.
Um, it's like this feeling of detachment from everything because being connected to any human being feels so overwhelming. The energy that is being um, conveyed or not like shared from the other person, it just feels so intense, and you can't really experience your body really. Um, and I wouldn't say that every person that has this is connected to the divine or has this like trying to escape into some spiritual stuff because I was not really inclined to I could care less about spirituality when I was younger. um, but I do think you are definitely like so consumed in the mental reality of your experience instead of actually experiencing feelings or physicality. So it helps you detach from everything going on around you to kind of mitigate the intensity of everything.
That makes a lot of sense. Yeah, I appreciate that. Um, and right now, what do you call your practice? Do you like to call it hands-on healing, energy work, or something else? What you practice now since graduating?
I just call it like energy treatments.
Hmm.
Doesn't sound like too invasive or like too woo woo, but sounds kind of gentle and nice.
I like that. Yeah, I know a lot of us have a bit of an aversion to the word healer, um, because it's really the person themselves, right? The client who's healing.
Yeah, you're kind of just supporting this person as they go through their own journey of letting go of stuff and allowing more stuff to blossom for themselves.
Hmm.
I don't know, it's difficult to explain that.
Um, and what does your life look like right now as you begin to establish an energy treatment practice? Like what do you have another job at the time and how does that relate to what you do?
Um, I currently work as a support worker for adults with disabilities. And the whole time I went through Brennan School, I was a lifeguard and swim instructor. Um, Towards the end of school in the last couple of years, um, I could experience like how do I describe this? Like the energy of the karma being played out, where I'd have specific situations with specific coworkers or specific people like patrons that would come in, and what like the karma between us, stuff that needed to be worked out, and also um, specific things that I struggled with, like speaking up for myself, speaking up in general, staying present and not like spazzing out or trying to leave my body. I think those were like tasks that I could see where the work from Barbara Brennan was super helpful in allowing me to actually be able to take on these external tasks and be like super present with them and kind of let go of the karma that needed to be played out there. And working with people with disabilities is sometimes it's really fun, but other times it's incredibly challenging. And I'd say one of the things I've taken away from Barbara Brennan that has helped me with this is feeling super centered when all kinds of chaos is occurring outside with other people, and being able to just like calmly go through my thoughts and like make decisions to kind of settle chaotic experiences, and calm people down. And yeah, I wish I could like put specific scenarios that I've experienced like in people's face to show them like uh just the ability to be so like calm and centered in these like shit shows that are occurring.
Yeah, that's beautiful. And that's something that you feel you cultivated since going to Barbara Brennan School of Healing. Yeah,
Yeah.
beautiful. And what can you share? Like, what are so as far as your energy treatment practice, what are some of the issues that clients come to you with?
Usually I've had a lot of people come to me with lots of relationship issues
Mm.
and lots of people with a schizoid defense. And I've had a decent amount of experience with people who have had cancer um, come to my treatments.
Do you want to talk a little bit about, do you work with couples or usually it's individuals?
I
When,
use individuals.
okay. And you had in our conversation, you mentioned cord healings in relationship. Do you want to talk a little bit about, first of all, defining what cords are energetically, and then how you might go through a treatment for somebody?
Let me channel.
And if you can give us a specific example, as specific as possible, that would be great. Like if
Yeah,
there's a case scenario.
I have a couple examples. First, I'll try to explain chords. So we all have energy centers where we're able to process experience of life. What do I mean by that? So
Right?
when you talk about your second center, that mostly deals with your own emotions, and I'd also say lots of your sexual relations. And then obviously you have your heart center, which deals with all kinds of relations of sharing love between people. And then your third center is how you relate with your birth mother. And then you also bring that kind of conditioning of how you related with your mother into all relationships that you have in life. Um, and between the chords, there's all kinds of information being shared between the two people. And majority of it is unconscious. Like, um, you're going to be very unaware of the subtlety of the information being exchanged between two people. But sometimes you can pick up, like if you feel like super anxious and you're really close to a friend or something like that, they can maybe sense that you're anxious and then you're sending that energy to somebody else and you're wanting them to kind of like comfort you, but you're not verbally explaining it. And
Sorry to interrupt you, but are we talking about chakras or when you say energy centers?
yeah, energy center that would be chakras.
Okay.
Um, And
I'm so
all of these,
sorry to interrupt you for just a second, Peter. I need to make sure that the audio is getting picked up correctly. So sorry. Just hold that thought. Because I was just checking. Okay, sorry. It's not registering on the other app. Yeah, it should be the settings are correct. Okay, I'm just gonna let it go. It's registering the audio, but it's not registering um the Zoom audio. So uh okay. All right. You know what? Let me just ask my friend really quick. I'm so sorry. I just want to make sure that we absolutely capture this. Hey, so Zoom audio capture is not registering during the Zoom. Do you remember what the fix was? Oh shoot. You know what? Let me try this. Okay, now um okay. Okay, can you say something?
hi, my name is Peter.
Um shoot. Okay. All right, let me ask him. So sorry about this. This is my first time doing this solo. My friend is had something else going on today. Um, I think we'll just keep going because I know it's registering some audio. It's just for some reason not. Uh, yeah, I'm not. This isn't my not my forte. Okay, I mean it's the mic is picking us up, and so can you say something again?
Hi, my name is Peter.
Oh, okay. Now it's registering. Okay. So sorry. I think it's going to be okay to use what we had before, but if you wouldn't mind, because this is such an important section on the cord healings, and if you could go through again. So I'm going to start off with the question again. Um, So you work with people who have issues with relationships and energetically. So I'm just curious what accord healing is, and if you could walk us through how what the process is of working with someone with the energy around relationships.
Um, okay, so everyone has forms energetic cords between energy centers or chakras. So your energy center forms a cord with somebody else's energy center, and you share information between those. Energy centers. So we usually form chords with people and we share energy the same way that we would share it with our parents. So if you have male friends or a boyfriend or female friends or girlfriend or whatever, your male chords are going to be similar to how you formed them with your father, and your female chords with females are going to be how you formed them with your mother. And to give some examples of what information is being shared between these chords. Um, Now the chord is also going to be processing all kinds of information that you already have inside your chakra, and that's going to be a bunch of combinations of kind of your own conditioning of how you were raised and brought up in your family and in culture and society and wherever you grew up. So however your family, if your family was open to sex or wasn't open to sex, however your relationship was with sex, with your parents talking about that with you, or maybe you were molested or sexually assaulted, that's going to affect your second center and how you form chords with other people. And you're going to share information in that chord with the other person, or you're also going to form chords with other people that bring experiences that activate those wounds that or the conditioning that you have inside that energy center. And another one as an example, how in your family you experienced love between you and your parents is going to be shared between the heart center chords. Um, and that's a whole other video in of itself that we could go to, how people share love and the different conditioning around that, and um, working with people who are ready to have cord work done on them. Usually, they begin to talk about relationship issues that they're having troubles with, and then it becomes kind of a theme in the sessions, or it is something like super pressing with them in that particular session. And you go in. I won't go into the details of how to do the cord healing, but
What's like an example, like of is it usually romantic attachments that people come to you with, or issues with their families, or
yes, romantic is usually a big one, and then also like all kinds of family issues, whether it be with like siblings or parents or grandparents. Or I haven't really done anything with children just because I don't want to interfere with the child if they're younger and they haven't really developed yet. Like developed like cognitively and energetically, I haven't really kind of settled. Um, Let me think of a few examples. There was this one woman that I worked with, and her main complaint was she felt incredibly exhausted, and she had a whole bunch of other things that I unfortunately never didn't really get to work through with her. But um, she had this ex-boyfriend. She lived in Canada, and she was originally from the Netherlands, but she immigrated here, had a life here, and then she was dating this man from I think Bangladesh. And they broke up and he moved back to Bangladesh. So that's, I have no idea how many kilometers, like thousands of kilometers apart. But all of his cords he had like hooked inside of her chakras or energy centers. And he was sucking energy from her through his cords to him. And he was also imposing power into, like, he was overpowering her and like overemphasizing um that he was the one that controlled her and she had no control over her own life and
Mm.
all the decisions she was making. Like she had no autonomy, even though she had broken up with this person and they were thousands of kilometers away. She was still being incredibly affected by this person. So I had a couple of sessions where I would unhook the cords and then dissolve the cords between them. And each time I would unhook a cord, I could feel immediately a rush of energy to that energy center and then energy being dispersed out into the rest of their body and the rest of their field. Um, and so she had hooks from this person in her second, third, fourth, fifth, and sixth chakras. And I also did some other cord healings. Like this woman, I feel so bad for her. She had a really rough life. Like her mother was very emotionally cold and very abusive emotionally and verbally. And once I released those hooks, I would also, with my high sense perception, I became aware of cords with her mother who had died, I don't know, like 20, 30 years previously. They would come to the surface to be worked on. And I'd work on her cords between her mother, and then there were also cords with her father and her father. She was very close with her father, but her father ended up taking his own life, and that was a whole thing for her. And yeah, there's just so many things that she was going through, and working with the cords just allowed for her to be able to have more energy running through her. And to relate it back to her like original complaint was like she felt so exhausted and drained and like she wasn't herself because all of these chords were still sucking energy or weren't like there wasn't a coherent and like nourishing exchange of energy between these chords and these people that she was attached to.
That's so fascinating. I'm so curious about what makes someone that susceptible to another person's energy drain? Is it their own consciousness that's at play as well? Or, I don't like to walk around the world and think that anybody could just hook into me if they wanted to. So what's happening in the client's field that may allow that to happen or make space for that to happen? Or do you disagree with that?
I think you I think if we're going into the realm of entities, then I think entities that you maybe don't necessarily consciously know you're interacting with could hook into you, but in just everyday normal life, I think you have to form some kind of actual relationship with that human being for them to hook into you. And then I think there's like so many factors that go into somebody hooking into you. One, there's karma trying to be played out from past lives between these two people, probably. Or this could be another person that maybe you don't have any karma with, and then they're creating somewhere between you, but that's a whole other thing. There's because when you release the hook, the cord from being hooked into that person, it opens up the time capsules or like the bound up mental beliefs and the emotional energy stuck in there. And then that reverberates into the chords that you have with your parents. So there's the past life stuff in there, and then there's also the conflicts or the way that you related to your parents involved with their chords, and that's how you're going to be susceptible to allowing somebody to hook into you because it's going to feel normal, what you perceive as normal and healthy, not healthy, but like what you perceived as normal growing up, because that's something that you would have experienced as a child. So you're just kind of recreating the chords with another person. Um, and those chords are going to create all kinds of life experiences with that person that are going to activate all the other time capsules in your field and in your chakras to be worked on. But the reason why I believe they like you cycle through them over and over and over again for years is because you're so afraid or you're unaware of that you can actually release these things. And probably also wrapped up in that is sometimes the timing of the karma. It's not now, or sometimes maybe not even in this lifetime. Things are to be worked out, but later in life, for whatever reason, X amount of things had to fall into order and unfold for you in your life for that stuff to kind of be ready to be released.
So would you say that this is kind of where psychology and energy meet, where a person may hold a certain beliefs about themselves and relationship, and then how that manifests energetically?
Yeah, I think, especially when it comes to relationships, there's definitely a lot of psychology wrapped up in there. I don't want to comment too much on that just because I don't have a lot of training um, in like psychoanalysis or psychology specifically.
Mhm.
Um,
But we certainly study mental patterns, right, in BBSH and the characterologies. So,
yes, like I can talk about it in that framework, but I couldn't like pull out any like Freud or like Carl Jung terminology if that
no,
makes sense.
that's okay. Yeah, no, I think it's just the acknowledgement, to just to make a complete picture of what you're talking about, that this is energetic, and there are core beliefs that we carry that are, at play with energies. Would you say that's correct?
Yes, yes. Um, I can share a few examples if you want.
Yeah, that'd be great.
Um, okay, I'll use my uh, schizoid wounding as an example. Uh, because I was a fetus when I first experienced this, like with the other characterologies, there can be specific thought patterns or like mental beliefs that are wrapped up in this wounding that you can experience as you kind of work through the different layers of it. But my experience with it was there wasn't really any like verbal or mental thoughts. It was just this intense feeling that came up anytime the time capsule or wounding was touched. And there were times where, like, I'll give examples of when things were like layers were kind of being peeled off of it, where I would like spend time just sitting and focusing on a specific level of the field, like the first level of the field and the fifth level of the field. I was holding it for like hours, and for several hours, just like fear, the feeling of fear, but it was also specific to those levels. Like it feels different than like the physicality of like when your life is being threatened. Just like the vibration of that being like released and experienced for like 4 or 5 hours at a time, and then after that being released, then I could have a little bit more ability to tolerate interactions between me and another person. or be in groups. Um, Having like specific time capsules being released, and then I'm going deep somewhere into my mind, experiencing me being tortured or being killed or something like that, and then I can literally feel like the emotions trapped in that specific time, um, being released from my body and like pushed out or flowing out of my like energy field in my body, and then all kinds of other more enjoyable life force energy like pulsating, flowing through my body as that stuff's being released. And then after that occurs, it becomes easier to connect with people, and then it's just keeps on unfolding more and more, and you get more and more to the core of that core wounding that kind of creates all of these not so pleasant experiences that you had previously.
So it's kind of sounds like it's in kind of conventional terms, sort of becoming aware of what's in your subconscious. And then once you become aware of that, it's able to release and make space for new experiences that with some intention behind them. Is that correct?
Yeah, I'd say that's correct.
And you also said that you work with cancer patients. Can you talk a little bit about how that's been for you? And you specifically, you talked about, being the necessity of holding healthy boundaries while working with cancer patients without going into defense yourself. And if you could talk a little bit about what defense means in this context and how that's been for you.
Uh, the defense that would come up for me would be me needing to abandon myself and caretake this other person so that they wouldn't have to experience the emotional pain that they're experiencing. And they would usually bring this on by their own experience of desperation and not wanting to die. And that intensity of energy being pushed into me would activate my own um, boundary issues. And I'd have to become aware that I'm doing this and then let go of trying to take care of them or save them and just kind of surrender, like literally mentally like melt the desire to like save them. I don't really know how to describe this process because I'm doing all of this like energetically in a session. Um,
It sounds like surrender.
yeah, like just allowing them to go through whatever their own process is and not intervening except for kind of being the conduit for whatever's happening in a treatment or session.
Mhm.
Um, what I've noticed is that cancer manifests for each person for their own individual reasons. I worked with two people who they had it while we were working together, and one person they already had it and they'd been cancer free for several years. A person that was cancer free while we were started working together. The sessions were very interesting, and she had ovarian cancer. Uh, and I'd released time capsules that were in her ovaries and in her uterus and in her second chakra. And in the last session that we had together, she brought up that she had an abortion when she was very young, and she carried a lot of guilt around that because she was raised Catholic and she didn't want her parents to know about that, and a bunch of guilt around just the abortion and that loss. And there's a lot of emotions around that. So I worked with that in a session with her, kind of connecting her to her child in a different realm and kind of coming to peace with that, at least as much as she could in that session.
The
Um,
unborn child.
yeah, the unborn child.
Mhm.
Um, one of the other people is my cousin. I know we're supposed to work with family members, but I went to go visit him, and I just kind of got guidance to give him a core star healing, and then I ended up got more guidance afterwards to give him a healing every day for 5 days after that. And I think I released at least 16 time capsules.
Wow.
Uh, and all lots of them were super, like the HSP that would come through is lots of really brutal deaths, or they were also related to things that he was experiencing in this current lifetime that he really struggled with, that he shared with me. And then I would uh there was one that was really sad where I had this vision of a man having his wife and child taken away from him and killed and then thrown into a river, and then him having to watch all that, and then just all the emotions from that person like being released. And there were just lots of time capsules being released like that. um,
And these would be from past life, right?
yes, from past
And
life.
was he also, did he have cancer as well?
Yeah, he had cancer. He's still currently alive, but he's probably not going to make it. He had to have his bowels removed, so
I'm
can't
sorry.
consume any uh, food for ever. Um, and he thought he was gonna die a couple of days, like the day I was gonna go see him, he wanted to use assisted suicide, and then I gave him those healings, and he's still kicking around.
Mm.
So that has released a bunch of stuck energy for him, and he's being able to work through whatever else he has in his lifeline.
So I think that for anyone watching, the question might be, can energy treatments cure cancer?
Uh, yes and no. Um, this is also really tricky when you're in the position as of the healer as well, because if you have the kind of wounding around caretaking, this will definitely get activated of wanting to be like a savior to help this person or whatever. Feel like you need to take on other people's responsibilities or whatever. But in regards to curing it, it really depends on the person's karma. And I'm not saying karma as in like good or bad. It just depends on what they need to learn from that experience. Like maybe they're bound to die and they needed to experience that dying process and all the things that came along with it to learn whatever they needed to learn and to release whatever things they needed to release in their life. And if a person is open to it, they do have the possibility of going into remission and releasing the cancer from their body, getting rid of it. And also to tie something else in that I feel like a lot of people that maybe come to energy healing and they'd want to receive sessions if they have like a physical illness or a disease or something, they're wanting to avoid medical treatment. And there are rare cases where purely the energy healing sessions can maybe help solve and cure that problem. But going through the medical system and using the different modalities and treatments that are in hospitals and all that kind of jazz can be helpful. And that's going to activate so many other things that that person has to work through. Um, what, like, if you're just trying to avoid that stuff, then, and you just want to solely rely on the energy stuff, you're probably missing out on so many more opportunities to actually help release things and for you to allow yourself to receive all other kinds of energies from interacting with people and the other treatments that can help release physical things, and then that'll release bound energy inside you. I don't know, I'm kind of rambling. Does that make sense though?
No, it makes sense. It sounds like, one can't really avoid the healing process that's meant to happen, wherever it may lead. Which
Like
is,
I have this other client that I've been working with, and he had cancer, and um, he was incredibly adamant on not going through the medical system, and he
mm,
wanted to meditate it away and use all kinds of energy treatments to kind of get rid of the cancer. And having more and more sessions with him, I learned that he had gone through like 7 or 8 different surgeries as a child.
mm.
Some of them were almost fatal, and they never really resolved his issue that he had. So he had a really big mistrust with doctors and the medical field in general. So while I was working with him, he somehow decided that he was going to accept the chemo treatment and being in the hospital and all that. And I think that also helped him heal his wounding with the medical field and just authority figures in general. And
So it's interesting how sometimes energy healing can actually put somebody on the path to more conventional treatment.
yes, yeah.
And also helped. I'm in my understanding, energy treatments can be really helpful for somebody going through chemotherapy, both before treatments and after. Has that been
Yeah,
your experience?
for chemotherapy, there's some techniques that you can use. Like every single time you have a chemo session, the body is going to be absolutely like just attacked by all the chemo in it. So you're going to have to help remove lots of the gunk that's in the energy field, and that'll help um, the chemo kind of be more effective as it's going through the person's physical body. And then radiation, it's frying the cells from the radiation. Like it's trying to fry and like destroy the cancer cells. It's also gonna like fry specific energy fields in the person's energy system. So after, if you decide to do radiation therapy, a healer can go in and like restructure and balance the levels of the field that were kind of disturbed by the radiation therapy.
Mhm. Um, so in general, for somebody watching who is doesn't have cancer and but may have other issues going on, can you share just sort of one or two main general things about the healing process that could be helpful for those who are unfamiliar? Like, what is the process? Is the person lying on the table, and how would you start?
I think I'd want to start with what the person is coming in for. Like what is their reason for being here? And that can just be like a launching point for them to be curious and to actually want to dive more into the process that is going to unfold for them if they want to heal whatever issues they're coming for. Um, and I think the more that you release stuck energy and you release beliefs and you have more capacity to tolerate your own energy and your own life force and the ability for higher energies to kind of flow through you, that kind of opens up a person to being more curious about themselves and the capacity that they have to create things that they really desire to experience in life, like whether that be a relationship or some really deep seated longing that they've had their whole life or that's come up for them and that seems really important to them. Um,
So there's some dialogue going back and forth during the healing, or is it usually before or after?
I usually do it before and then sometimes after.
Hmm.
And sometimes after, like, you'll release something and then the client, I'm sure you've experienced this as well, like, the client will share something like really insane that occurred in their life that I don't know, you release something and they felt comfortable to share it, or you mentioned something and it made them think of that, and then that
Hmm.
opens up another door for other things to be healed in the future.
Hmm.
And then I find that sometimes before a session, I can perceive into somebody's field. Maybe they're thinking about the session and they're getting excited, or I don't know, they're thinking about the session, and then I can kind of feel into their field things that they're wanting to work on. And then sometimes they just show up, whatever they're talking about, it seems very important and pressing to them in that moment. And then I can start to perceive things with my HSP that are coming up in their field that are to be worked on in that session.
Hmm. Cool. And I know that one of the basics of, what we've learned at Barbara Brennan School of Healing is to approach clients with unconditional love. So, can you talk about how a practitioner reaches that state of unconditional love, and yeah, start there.
Think it can be, it's a whole experience to do that. First, I think you just kind of have to have curiosity and about meeting somebody new. Um, and you kind of have no judgments, as few as you can, no agendas for what you want to do with this person or how you want the session to play out. You're kind of just becoming like a really curious child. And I think just being present with yourself, being aware of how your heart line is, and being really tapped into your heart line, and being aware of what your energy fields are doing, how they're expanding or contracting, or just being stable, or when you talk or when they talk, things are happening. And not being so worried about what the individual, like trying to control the individual, just really allowing whatever is to unfold, and that kind of just organically creates the process of like love to be experienced in a session and between the two people as you kind of like form a relationship and as like a client healer. Because I think when I first started and learning about like tapping into these levels and these feelings to experience and to these like states of being or whatever. Tried to force it, um, like really,
Tried
like
to force unconditional love or
yeah, like when first learning it, trying to like force these things, but it was all mental, and the
mm,
feelings that were not really there. And it's kind of like this organic process, this natural like flow of just opening yourself up to life and the other person as their life kind of flows through them.
mm. And yeah, and my final question is, what is love to you?
That's a crazy question.
That's funny because I'm building a whole channel around it.
Okay, how much time do we have? Like, I'm not trying to like, yeah, for like an hour, but
No, that's a really good answer. Yeah, keep going.
okay. Okay, I'm gonna share how I originally kind of got onto this path. Um, um, Something that is very personal to me is experiencing love, like our romantic love and just love and relationship and connection through relationship. And I really struggled with that as a youth. And there was this woman that I met. She was a coworker, and I remember just I was lifeguarding and I was looking at her and she was swimming with children to the deep end of the pool. And I had this experience of completely accepting everything about her. And by the grace of God, I had this mystical experience where like all kinds of energy channels opened up inside me and like energy field just expanded for like hundreds and hundreds of yards outside of me. And the most intense love I've ever experienced. And I like words really, I can't really describe the feelings of all this stuff going on, but it was like so intense and so expansive, and like felt like the truth, if that makes sense, like way beyond anything I had ever experienced or thought was possible to experience. And it made me like really question, like, okay, maybe God is real. Maybe I need to like actually like
No,
look
I
at
can feel it. I feel it in your field. I mean, it's clearly exciting.
it. I no longer um, have talked to that person in years. But just that kind of experience of expansion and openness opened up my mind to what exactly is love. And
Mm,
I think there's so many different kinds of love, like the love that you feel for like a pet feels different than the love that you feel for like a sibling or your parents or your friends. And like the love you feel between different friends is different. And the way that you experience it in your field and in your chords is different. And then like romantic love is a different feeling than the love you share with your friends or your family. And then like the love that you experience for like God or like just the love that can pour through from like the super depth of whatever energies are in the that like form the universe is a completely different kind of love. And I feel like that is probably like dispersed in all the other kinds of loves that we experience. I don't really know if I can like really verbally get out my experience of what I think love is. But if I could learn how to like transmit it, I would like share that with everybody if that makes sense.
I think you just did. I mean, just describing your experience with the girl in the pool, the woman in the pool. Yeah, because it sounds like it was more than physical attraction. It was, as you said, a total acceptance of her being. Sounds like love to me.
Yeah.
It's beautiful. Is there anything else that you want to add that we didn't touch on?
Um, yes. Um, I want to talk about the schizoid stuff more, if that's okay.
Sure. Yeah.
I
Do you want
feel,
to define what schizoid is to start off?
yeah, it's the experience of pulling your energy out of the top of your field or back of your field, and also freezing your energy as a defense mechanism to protect you from perceived fears of dying.
Hmm.
Um,
It's also called the dreamer in its current incarnation, right? The schizoid personality or characterology.
yeah, like there's so many things when you kind of tap into the archetype of the dreamer where you have longings and ideas, but you can't really bring it into your actual everyday moment to moment life. But like once you kind of integrate that dreamer aspect into you, um, then that's kind of you've healed a lot of the schizoid defense wounding. Sorry, I think okay now I'm not having bleeding nose. Okay, we're good. Um, I want to share just in case anybody comes across this and they have schizoid wounding. I want to try to portray the experience of like a struggling schizoid. Um, like when you try to interact with people, you feel like your whole body is shutting down, but it's so normal. Like it just becomes your like everyday experience that you don't actually think it's wrong and you might think like everybody else kind of experiences stuff like this. But it
Mm.
makes it so incredibly challenging to actually connect with people, to literally talk with people, to share your emotions with people and to receive their emotions and to be genuinely vulnerable and intimate with them because you literally are so terrified of the energy that comes through when you connect with somebody. Your body has to shut down to protect itself from that core wound that it's trying to protect. um
And is that usually from a childhood wounding?
I would say like it initially begins like in utero, like when your mother's pregnant with you or during the birthing process, and then it also gets more kind of drilled into you if you have lots of experiences with authority figures where they create a very hostile and very unsafe bonding between you. That makes sense.
Hmm.
Um, and I think it's such a delicate um, thing to tap into because it generally feels like when you're actually working through the layers of the wound, it feels like you're gonna die. So it's so terrifying to work through the layers of fear that come up, like the fear of dying that comes up. But you have to take it really slowly um, and give your energy system, like what I mean by energy system, like your chakras, your energy channels, and your energy field, like time to be able to tolerate being more expanded and more energy running through it. And my experience is Um, I think because you're so aware of the subtleties of fear and of dying, you pick up on all the subtlety. You have the capacity to pick up on the subtleties of like higher energies once you start putting in the work to kind of release all of these things that are stuck inside you. Um,
Higher energies meaning more life affirming, joyful energy.
yeah, like you can actually start to experience and tolerate more pleasurable emotions, and you can experience like the subtle kind of frequencies of higher energy fields.
Mhm.
And if you really want to like take if somebody's really interested in like if you're a schizoid and you're really interested in the spiritual aspect, you really need to not worry about that at the beginning and like working through the emotions of fear and really getting into contact over time and being able to tolerate like your physical body, your first level of the field, and your etheric field, and learning how to tolerate running energy through your chakras and running energy through your vertical power current and through your feet and your all your joints. Like it's a slow process, but eventually you can go from not being able to tolerate any kind of energy whatsoever to being able to like expand your field and experience all kinds of beautiful things, which is like what you're wanting to do, but you're wanting to bypass all the things that need to be cleared so that you can actually like live this day to day in time.
Yeah, it's so complicated and interesting being human, isn't it? Because I feel like, as you're talking, at the same time that one might be working through, all these things going on internally, there might also be sort of a subconscious addiction to reinforcing those patterns. For example, somebody who was abused as a child might end up in a not necessarily abusive situation, but with somebody who's like constantly slightly critical and judgmental and who keeps activating that same, character defense, right? So, and that can almost make you feel a little bit crazy. Like, is it me? Is it them? So are you saying that by healing oneself, really focusing on the inside and one's own energy field and subconscious beliefs and releasing those, that one also then can choose, differently in life so that we don't end up with partners who continue to re-traumatize? Or does one build up more of a tolerance for people who tend to be in defense and judgmental?
Uh, there's so many avenues to go with that. I think if you still have to be in contact with specific family members, um, they probably most likely aren't going to be doing work on themselves. So you have to first learn how to not worry about them fixing themselves, but you have to learn how to regulate your own energy and your own emotions and all the different depths of energy that are connected in your energy system so that you can manage them when they're going crazy. And then also, the more work you do, the more kind of crazy things they do will kind of, first, at first, I notice they don't happen, or when they do happen, they don't really affect you as much. And then they stop doing those behaviors less and less. And then you start having less and less experiences of like butting heads with them or getting into arguments or whatever it may be. Um, I think when you stop, once you release a lot of your old ways of try, like you were talking about going into old, like being stuck in habits that don't positively like nourish you.
Yeah, or kind of being in relationship with somebody who is not healed or is still working on their healing and continues to activate those same, being in contact with them continues to activate the same energetic pathways, reinforcing sort of negative beliefs and fears and
I think you have to decide, and it'll probably take some time to come to a true conclusion, like true as in like it feels right within you to make the decision if you should continue the relationship with that person or if you need to let go of this relationship. Like sometimes with family you can't necessarily do that. But if you're dating them or something like that, maybe you do realize, okay, we've come to the end of this and our paths aren't meant to be intertwined any longer. And then, yeah, I think you kind of let go of seeking out, like unconsciously seeking out partners that activate the same stuff and the same patterns that you would experience in previous relationships and patterns that you would act out with your parents and wounds that you have within your relationships of love bonds with your parents.
so Peter, thank you so much for joining me today, and it was so great to be with you. And I hope we can continue the conversation soon.
Yeah, I had a great time chatting with you as well.
Thanks so
Thank
much.